Hi guys, welcome back to Detailing in the Beast. So this video is all about the correction process on this 2014 Focus ST2. The car doesn't actually look that bad when you look at it from here, but when you get up close and look under the direct sunlight or artificial lights, it does harbour these really nasty swirl marks all over the car. The first thing to do then is to chemically decontaminate the car ready for polishing. So in this video we are doing a citrus pre-wash followed by a snow foam. And then after the snow foam, what we're going to do is apply tar and glue remover on spot areas of the car to remove any visible tar. And then we're going to do a fallout remover on all of the bottom half of the car and the wheels before moving on to the clay bar process. Whilst the snow foam is dwelling, we're doing the wheels on this side of the car, following the deep clean method that I have a video on. I will post a link to that now in the top corner. And at this point we're also scrubbing the tyres with a tyre brush. We leave the snow foam to dwell for about 5 to 10 minutes before jetting off the entire car, and then we'll repeat the process on the other two wheels whilst the tar remover and the fallout remover are at work. That was completed off camera. Once all that was completed, we then moved on to the clay bar process. Now this should be the last part of the decontamination, so we using a clay lube here, which is literally a quick detailer watered down 8 parts to 1. And we are using a piece of fine grade clay, moulded flat into a piece roughly the size of 250p pieces side by side. We're working in straight motions, backwards and forwards or up and down, never in circles. And we are hoping for a very smooth glide over the surface of the car, never sticking. If it's sticking, you need to either add more clay lube or remold your clay into another flat, fresh piece. I was remolding every quarter of a panel here, adding more clay lube probably every half a panel. And this just removes all of them final contaminants that are stuck in the car's paintwork. Now for a car this size I usually use 2 pieces of clay. This one's in the top half of the car and then I use a bottom half one. You can see that the top half has got a lot of contaminants, nowhere near as much as the bottom half. This was mainly off the sills and the lower doors, even after a tar and glue remover had been used. Next we move on to the engine bay. This is just a citrus degreaser and a hard bristle brush. We're working that citrus in. Now this is quite a messy job, but just leave that citrus to work and get the whole engine bay finished before you move on to washing it off. So now you've applied that citrus to the engine bay, it's now a case of just jet washing that off, following 3 simple rules. Number 1, car must be running. That is the very important rule. Number 2, don't get too close with the jet. And number 3, if you can lower the pressure on your jet wash, do so. Next, take an old towel. Don't use anything of your best, just take a really old towel and dry that off, or pat dry as much of that water off the engine bay as you can. It's not a case here of getting this bone dry, but just take off the excess ready for dressing. So we've now done the majority of the dirty jobs. So what we're going to do is get the car inside, ready for prepping, a little bit more engine bay work before moving on to polishing. So the first thing we're going to do once inside is pop the bonnet, and we're going to dry off that excess water with a blower before getting ready to apply the dressing. So please ignore the absolutely knackered trigger, it does need replacing. But what I like to do now is over apply the dressing, literally splash it on, and it will allow it then to get into all the nooks and crannies. Rub it in with a brush, very loose at this point. We're aiming to get into things like hoses, crinkles in hoses, undersides of plastic trims, all the difficult bits, not particularly the main tops. They will come later with the blower. After very rough application using a spray and a brush, we then spray liberally again all over, and this time to get the nice even finish we use the blower. So the blower will get into all them little nooks and crannies, it will make sure nothing is missed, and it will leave a really nice finish. Once this is done, so you've worked your way slowly over the entire engine bay, pat it dry using a clean microfiber cloth, and the results are as follows. So this is the before. I'm drawing your attention to the crinkle hose in the middle of the engine bay and the blue items around the edge, compared to now. Now this looks like new. This method has always worked for me. Next we're on to the exhaust. This is the before and the after. A little bit of auto salt and 4-0 wire wool. So once all that prerequisite work was done, we can now move on to inspecting the paint, and it is in such a bad state. The swirl marks on this are deep, they're tight, there is a hell of a lot of them. It's almost like there's a milky effect over the top because there are so many swirls. There are some deeper scratches on the bonnet, there's one highlighted here, and a deeper one running down the length of the bonnet here. But there were some saving graces moving around the car. The sides, although still swirled, were not as heavy. The gloss black panels, these were really bad. These were deep and tight again. These are always notorious, so I wasn't too fussed about these. They're quite easy to correct. The doors, although swirled again, weren't too bad, but there was a lot of work to do on this car. So then moving on to polishing. So every panel was pretty much the same. I always start off with my 1-inch rotary. I run that along the top edges, avoiding contact with any taped areas, obviously. Much easier to do with a 1-inch pad than something like a 3-inch. Definitely much easier to do than something like a 5 or a 6-inch pad. And then we inspect the work before moving on. We then move on to, if necessary, a 3-inch machine, DA, and then after that, again, inspect the work, and then do the majority of the panel using a -6 Pro machine with a 5-inch backing plate and a 5.5-inch pad. This whole process was done 2 times, 2 lots of cutting, so it was a cutting set and a finishing set. On the bonnet and the roof, they were particularly bad. There were 3 sets. And this whole process you see here, with the inspection, etc., was done on every single panel. So as we've seen earlier, this car was heavily swirled, and that did actually change the colour of the car from what it should have been. So after the first cutting set here, you can see that there's a definite improvement. The line down the middle is where the masking tape was. To the left, we've obviously got the uncut section, and to the right, we've got the cut but not refined section. And this time we've got the same thing, so the bottom being uncut, the top being cut. And this is in the dark under a inspection torch. And this is the progress at the halfway point of the day. Final panel of the day was the front bumper, due to all the little tricky angles and little tiny bits of paint. Not many people put the effort in to do 1-inch correction on a front bumper, but I do. It's them final touches that just make the car pop at the end. So speaking of the end, here is the result after 13.5 hours. And for reference, the car has been coated in Tax Systems Moonlight.